Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast. It's an interesting day. We are looking at raised beds. Batavia, I know the answer, but do you grow in raised beds?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, as do I. So these are what's the website, Batavia? Do you have it in front of you?
Better Homes and Gardens.
Yep. What Better Homes and Gardens says are the 10 best vegetables to grow in a raised bed. But we're going to analyze this and see if it is actually true. Spoiler alert, it's not. But we'll get there. So yeah, before we get started there, let me do this. Welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast, everybody. I am your host, Ben, and I am with my co-host, Young Batavia. Oh, excuse me, Miss Batavia the Botanical.
Mm-hmm. Still.
Hasn't changed. Not a bit. But if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron, an Apple subscriber, or come see us on YouTube and subscribe and like this video and any other one that you see. You can look on our Amazon list and get anything that we use in our gardens and we recommend on there that will help us a little bit. And also, we're sponsored by Planter App. So check out the link below and get yourself a nice discount on a lifetime membership or the Planter App. It is what has changed our gardens for the better, obviously. But check it out because we love the Planter App and we'd love for you to use it and grow your garden even more. Yep. And so we said this on the subscriber episode we released a couple weeks ago, but the bell is back and we have noticed that it hasn't been as audible in the video. So we are changing that. So Batavia's she's been working on her wrist flap thing going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, you warmed up?
I am actually both warmed up bell-wise and I'm in garden shape officially.
Oh,
I don't need like rest days in between. It's like garden, I'm in the garden and I need 2 rest days. That's the beginning of the season.
there you
So
go.
now it's like I can go in the garden in the morning and the evening and maybe even that next morning. Although I'm trying
Dang.
to avoid that. Yeah.
And for
Ready, man.
Batavia's next trick, she will begin powerlifting. All right, we've got a long list to go through, and there is a lot to talk about here. So let's get this pulled up. I hate this fingerprint reader. Okay, so raised beds. So we're kind of loosely talking about doing something like this for like different styles of gardening, like raised beds, in ground containers, stuff like that. If you guys listen to this and like it, then we can do more. If not, fine. But I think this is going to be very useful. And the reason why is because raised beds are kind of their own little beast. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, size, material, placement, like all of those things are things that even when you greatly consider it, you still may not get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is Better Homes and Gardens is world renowned for making your home better and growing a garden, I guess. I don't know.
That's their mission statement.
Yeah, that's their mission statement. I've always looked at the magazine in the grocery store, but like straight up, I can't afford to buy it. So that's it. But
I need like an annual edition. Like, I mean, they probably come out like once a month, I think.
yeah,
I mean, if I'm going to splurge, I need to like once incorporate everything.
right. But they recommend that you grow these. And so what we want to do here ultimately is look at this and say, like, is the information that we're getting as a general public accurate? And I mean, I don't know, Batavia. I don't consider myself a gardening expert. I consider myself a good gardener, but not an expert. I think it's kind of a stretch, and I think a lot of people will go out and get their master gardener and they're all of a sudden an expert and all that, which I looked into that at one point and that's not for me.
Yeah.
It was
I'm actually looking into it as well.
So. Yeah. So for me, I didn't do it because basically I took a lot of classes to learn what I already learned just so I can go volunteer for like hundreds of hours. And I was like, I'm good.
The whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole thingy thing. So, but anyways, their first one they recommend is...
Wait, no. I want to read their opening.
Oh,
These
okay.
easy to grow crops are the perfect vegetables for raised beds because they love loose, well draining soil, right? So, few things there. Easy to grow. When y'all are listening to us talk about these, think to yourself, are these really easy to grow? And then loose and well draining soil. Like, is that the default expectation for raised beds? Hmm.
Well, also, when we talk about this, is germinating considered easy to grow part, the grow part?
Mhm. I wouldn't have thought that, but I mean, I think, oh god, yeah, brother, like,
It's got to
like
be.
we're,
I mean, look,
yeah,
it's the grow process is from seed to
yeah,
dirt to
yeah.
harvest, right?
Well, he's also saying this because he knows some of the items on the list, and as soon as you say that, I'm like, well, yeah, good point.
I know all the items on the list. I mean, that's my job, right?
He only got down to number 7. Who are you fooling, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But all
Mm.
right, can I start?
You can start.
Okay, permission. All right, Leonard,
Mhm.
roll the tape. All right, so the first one is, and this is why I said that, carrots and parsnips. Okay, so raised bed. All right, raised bed, carrots and parsnips. Now,
Mhm.
let's say this: in raised bed is, in my opinion, is considered a small space to the tune of the fact that I consider each raised bed a separate garden in my
Mm.
space. And I
Yeah,
know
definitely.
it slightly drives Batavia crazy, and she's dealt with it for all these years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, it's easier for me. I manage it that way. So I have 11 gardens. Batavia has 833.2 gardens. Yeah, we're up to point 0.2 now. So
There's some that should be considered like point something, right? Yeah, so I'll sign on for that purpose alone.
yeah,
But really quickly, I have garlic and shallots planted. And I planted them last year because I was trying to get my hands around like my first beds that I planted, for the garden season. But technically, those spaces were planted. You see how I switched from beds to spaces? They're all so compact. I think they represent like 0.75, gardens in Ben's world. So
yeah.
there's that. It's 3 separate spaces though. So all right,
All right.
carrots.
So
Perfect.
carrots and parsnips. Now let's look at it from the beginning to the end.
Mhm.
Are they easy to germinate?
I've only grown parsnips once, and I can't recall how easy or difficult they were, but carrots absolutely not easy to germinate.
They're,
Carrots are probably if it's not number 1, it's in the top 3 of like the exact perfect conditions are needed.
well, let's just say that if carrots are number 2, parsnips are number 1 is more difficult.
Ah, okay, okay.
Okay. So, and by the way, Leonard, I want you to keep a running tally of how many are right and wrong on this. So
Oh,
we've got
okay.
10.
Yeah,
So it's easy math. We can do a percentage. Okay.
yeah.
All
He
right.
graced on a curve too, just so you
Nah,
know.
nah, Leonard ain't graving on no curve. And
What is
it's a,
it? Is it 60% is that a D or is it
yeah.
all right, well, he'll
So in
let us know.
today's world, my son is in the 5th grade.
Okay.
Everything is in 10%, and it drives me crazy. But yes, so 60% is technically a D.
Okay.
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 So
We're
we're
not
not,
aspiring for that though.
no, we're expiring for an A. I mean, I want this to be true, but we already, in my opinion, are down one. So
Mhm.
germination, 21 days at most. And it can very easily be 21 days for it to germinate. Have you experienced this, Batavia?
Absolutely, I have, and I'm trying to think if I've ever had carrots volunteer. So a lot of us sow heavily when we sow carrots. So, you have errant seeds all around. I don't know if I've ever looked up and said, hey, that's a carrot volunteer, which kind of also speaks to the difficulty of it just saying it's going to grow wherever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I definitely have experienced 21 days, even in the cooler temps, which is more ideal for germination for carrots. So, yeah.
Now I have experienced 2-day germination rates.
Hmm.
Two
Oh, shoot,
days.
I need to check on the ones I just sowed.
It was
We're recording this a
85
little bit
degrees
earlier.
when
Oh,
I did that.
wow.
Okay. I didn't
Okay,
think it was
okay.
going to happen, but in 2 days they did come up. That was once. And then
Mhm.
I've had parsnips more often than not germinate at all. Okay.
Mhm.
Now the other aspect of it too, and look, this is going to be kind of brutal, but we love y'all, and we set the bar high for our listeners. Look, big news, by the way. You're listening to the #5 gardening podcast in the entire world, from what I understand.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. So, I got a note about that. I don't know how much of, whatever, but
We'll take it, man.
I take a win. So
Mm.
we have y'all here and y'all listen to us. So we set the bar a little bit higher, and we understand that there are people at the beginning and people more advanced. Now, when I say that, what I'm referring to is the seed life for carrots and parsnips. Very low, very low. It's a year, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had germination, but it is dramatically cut back on the second year. So just be careful of that as you do it. And this was, as Batavia read in the beginning, it's all about the loose soil. So yeah, carrots love loose soil, but are you providing it loose soil?
Are you providing it loose soil? There's for, all seeds that I'm aware of, there is some dampness that's required. So this 2-day per young being up to 21-day window, are you really keeping the soil damp enough through the duration for that seed to pop? Right? Like there's nothing I ever water every day. Nothing. And I'm not implying that you need to water carrot seeds or the space you sowed carrot seeds in every day, but there is a level of how damp is that. Now there is a trick or two, but still it kind of goes back to you're not going to walk out and say, "Hey, there's some beans that I didn't even sow this year that are
Yeah.
popping up." They're not easy peasy like that.
Well, let me say this. I know I mentioned the 2-day germination rate. That happened once, but I like to say it a lot because it makes me feel like I'm really good and I do something really well. But that only happened once, so let's not go too deep into that. But typically, I get 7 to 20 days typically for germination, and it is temperature dependent. So
Yeah.
my phone is not treating me well today. Um,
That's
and
okay.
and so
And so why
it's
do you think parsnips are that different than carrots?
so it's a wider seed if
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
flat,
mhm,
and I've found that they are much more subject to rotting when
mhm,
you plant
mhm,
them. So last year I planted a whole bed and they rotted, and I had
mhm.
3 of them
Unfortunate.
sprout. Yeah, I mean I planted an entire bed because I wanted to, and I'm gonna do it again this year. You know how I am. I'm gonna dig my feet in, and I'm gonna get me a damn. By the way, I haven't shown you the picture yet. I
Mm-mm.
have a broccoli head this big right now.
Wow.
It is so
I'm
big.
terrible about, like, kinda that spatial awareness. However, I know it's, like, twice as big as your head, and
Yeah, and
that's meaningful.
I got a big ass head, so my mama will tell
The
you
width
that.
way, the width way.
Yeah, both ways. So and they say here in the article, shorter raised beds that are less than 12 inches high do different varieties. So a
Mhm,
shorter variety. Now, here's my issue. A raised bed, there's 2 varieties of raised beds.
mhm,
There's Batavia's variety where it's on a patio,
mhm.
and then there's my variety, which is, and not all of Batavia's are, and there's a variety like mine, which most people have where it's just set on the ground.
Yeah.
Why do I need to pick a shorter variety if there's roughly what, 50 miles of straight earth below it? Does that, I mean, are
But
we,
is that earth underneath that bed is pliable and, well draining and fluffy? Did they describe it as fluffy?
if I
I
was
don't think
sitting
they
next
said
to you, I'd
fluffy.
give you a hug for asking that question.
Oh, yeah.
Because what's the
He's not a hugger either. That's
no,
meaningful. Yeah.
no, actually, I don't like people touching me at all.
Mhm.
But it's a function of a raised bed. Okay.
Mhm, mhm,
So it's known that if you take a raised bed and you plop it on some, excuse my French, some shitty soil, and you take care of it and you grow in it and you water it, guess what? That soil is going to get softer and it's going to
mhm,
get more
mhm.
pliable, especially over the years as roots penetrate it and stuff like that. It's a known
Yeah.
thing. It's not a secret. It's not trampled on. It's,
Mhm.
it. and everything that you put into that bed will eventually work its way down into that bed and make it fluffy. So I don't know.
That's if I'd say if there's a level of care given all throughout the growing year to that bed, right? Because we've seen soil go awry, kind of those first couple of inches of soil. And so if that isn't cared for, you're not going to get any improvements 10 inches down, you know. So keep that in mind. Not making this completely about soil, but it absolutely feeds into easy to grow or not. Leonard.
Yeah. Well, the thing is it is all about soil. Everything we talk about is about soil. You know what I mean? So that's part of it. I'm trying to get my phone to not time out so I can do this easier. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one so we can move this along. The
So wait,
second,
what's the vote on that one?
I
Are
say
they wrong
no.
or right?
I
Yeah.
say no. I say they're wrong. What do you say?
I would have never put carrots on my top 10 list of easy things to grow in raised beds.
Keyword easy.
Mhm,
Now,
mhm.
is it a top 10 for raised beds? Absolutely. Because you can get a lot in a small space.
I'm growing carrots in raised beds.
I
I
am too.
There is based on my garden setup, that's the only place I would ever grow carrots.
I'm growing 0.75 beds of carrots. So, yeah, I think it's a great for a raised bed, but I don't think it's
Yeah,
an easy one. So,
yeah.
all right, second one. This is an easy one. Easy to talk about. Tomatoes.
Mm. So,
You're
this
not going to
one's
rain on the parade
easy.
of me and all the listeners.
Listen,
I can't
I
do this
grow
roller coaster.
tomatoes in raised beds and they do wonderful. I also almost immediately am a Debbie Downer when it comes to how much space, how much soil people grow, in particular tomatoes in. I kind of shriek inside every time I see a 1 gallon container with an indeterminate tomato plant in it. Right. You know, so that said, generally, I think most people's raised beds have at least 8 inches of soil, whether it's sitting on concrete like mine, or whether it's sitting on top of some other soil, you know, grass, whatever have you. So, with those disclaimers, I'd say, yep, they're easy to grow as a single plant in a raised bed. But there's always opportunities for people to get greedy when it comes to what else they want to plant in the raised beds with tomatoes. Tomatoes are
Yeah,
a big crop, man, like size wise. They're a big dog.
they're big dog, but they produce a lot. So one plant will give you what you want.
Are you
Um,
adding criteria to this discussion? Sounds like you are.
I'm just having a discussion.
Okay. All right. I'm just letting you know. I want to keep track of the rules here.
No, there. Look, this is an open forum. I mean, seriously, because that's how we roll, Batavia. And
Uh-huh.
by the way, when we get to the question, we are going to figure out how we roll.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. But it's not. But I mean, is it easy? This is a difficult one to put in a category of easy or hard because it's a standard. I mean, out of all the people listening today on all the platforms, if you're not growing tomatoes, leave us a comment about that because I bet there's not going to be a lot of people that aren't going to grow tomatoes this year. You know what I mean? So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
standard for a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always grown them in raised beds, and once you learn them, you're good. They're relatively easy to take care of. So, do you have any?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we ready to vote on tomatoes and move on to some of the more difficult ones?
We are.
Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah,
Easy.
through gritted teeth. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, seriousness. I do believe that it's an easy crop to grow on raised beds.
Now, as we go to the next one, Batavia, let's remember this.
Mhm,
We don't want to just think about how easy it is to grow, but what other issues it can cause. Okay,
mhm.
moving forward. So the next one, they say melons. Okay, so you got watermelons, cantaloupes. If anybody in the world ever grows a honeydew for whatever God knowing, unloving reason they do. Um, oh,
Best honeydew melon I've ever had was growing in my garden.
and you know what? I believe it. But the ones you get from the store taste like nothing. So it's like, what's the point?
The
But
only other melons that are as bad, or if not worse, are any melons if you've ever gone to any type of conferences, or the, salad bar melons at, like, a hotel or something, like,
yeah, it's like eating green
remember that
water.
fruit? Yeah, it's just, so bad, so bad.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting one. Let's take it from the beginning
Mhm.
of sowing the seed. So from sowing the seed to beginning of growth, is it hard to grow?
5 out of 5 would recommend, 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Would or wouldn't?
I think it's easy to sow the seed,
Yep.
and then, germination is easy. I think that it's not a plant that I've noticed that gets attacked quickly, so I think for those reasons, it's not one that's going to be so thirsty that once you've sown it and it starts to grow, that if you miss a watering that, it's all done. So, I think that yeah, I think that it can absolutely do its own thing too, which moves us into the con of this, but
Yeah,
I'll
I
let you
think
provide some input.
I think it does do it, germination, planting, super easy. Um, as a matter of fact, I'm willing to say it's one of the top 5 easiest to start. The problem is it compounds after that moment, and it starts to grow and grow and grow
Mm,
and grow some more. And you're like, okay,
mhm.
cool. And then it grows even more. And next thing you know, you got a 10-foot vine in a raised bed,
Yeah.
right? So I, Mr. Ben, young Ben, I let mine grow out of the bed, and I
Mhm.
don't mind that look. I will tell you, it is a pain in the butt. And go back to last summer and look at my Seminole pumpkin that grew over the trellis and another 50 feet around the garden, through the garden. I
Mhm.
didn't even walk down like 3 paths of my garden last year at all. So, it was an issue, and it caused a lot of headaches. And so, if we go before that in the growing of it, and then we look at how much you plant and sow, where do you see the mistake that could happen there?
Well, I mean, I think if you focus on why is it a problem that it can sprawl all around the bed, it's because we are making a general assumption of if you have a raised bed and you're sowing melon seeds and growing melons in it, that you want to grow something else in that space, right? If that's not you, then it looks like it's probably an A plus plus for you when it comes to this one. But if you want to plant something else in the space, you're going to start shading out, choking out other plants pretty
Yeah.
quickly. If you're growing it in a traditional way, seed sown, this is not a vertical growing method, right? We're looking at this thing, it's straight raised bed.
Yeah.
Then I think that's where the beginning of your problem
Well, and if you
begins.
take anything and you say, well, you can grow it, but it needs to go vertical, you're complicating it
Mhm.
at that point,
Is it
right?
truly raised bed growing then?
Right.
I think it's like maybe a raised bed plus plus or something.
Yeah, because I mean, and there's some, and I think I'm going to go on the record, and I think every garden should have a trellis in it. I think it adds visual appeal. I think it adds diversity. I think it saves space. I think it helps with disease, helping to find pests and stuff like that. So I think every garden should have some kind of trellis. I don't think that melons, and I know in today's day and age it's unpopular, but I don't think they should be growing on trellises. It's just not optimal, because once you get that fruit, and I mean, look, you can get a 50-pound watermelon if you grab the wrong kind of seed, and then you got to hammock the watermelon, you got to baby it, and all that stuff. So obviously, the size of the plant's the issue. But what's the number one question you get about watermelons, Batavia?
When is it gonna be ready to pick?
Yep. Or how do I know when to
Mhm,
harvest it? Right. And so
mhm.
that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, so for the record, I let the record show that I have only grown melons using a trellis. I've only grown them vertically. And if I didn't have to grow them vertically, meaning I don't want to commit any other space to grow them in a more traditional way inside of a raised bed, I don't want to, like, I could grow them in the cage baby, starting at one end of the cage baby and let it continue to grow that 30 feet of the cage baby. right? But I don't want to just grow melons there. So anyway, I've grown melons successfully vertically, but it is a bit more of a pain, right? And if I didn't have to do it that way, then I wouldn't. I am also particular about the type of melon that I grow based on the size it's going to mature to. I don't want a 20-pound watermelon to be hanging and dangling off of my trellis, right? Like I am everything in me is trying to combat animals from coming into my garden. I can just, and this is the pessimist part of me, even in the garden, I could just visualize that 20-pound watermelon that I've rigged up. I go in the house, and at some point at 5 a.m., before I get out to the garden, it falls. And by 7 a.m., I have all kinds of critters that have come in and enjoyed that cracked watermelon. Like, that's my vision.
See,
So,
my
with that in
vision is a little
mind,
bit different.
uh-oh.
My vision is that watermelon falls and cracks that I've been watching for weeks. And then I go out
Uh-huh.
there and find it and I flip my lid and rip the trellis out of the ground and walk away. That's
You
my
didn't let me
vision.
finish. That's exactly what. So my solution is to grow smaller melons, right? And so that has been successful for me. But again, it's not in just your plain raised bed. The plants are inside of a raised bed that a trellis is connected to. So as soon as you insert the trellis, I feel like that's not what Better Home and Gardens is describing, which I mean, I'm ready to vote on melons.
Well, I want to say one more thing
Mhm.
before we do the Better Home and Gardens vote. Um, Inconsistent watering is a major
Mm.
issue for the consistency of the inside of the flesh of the melon. So it adds a little bit more complexity to it.
One more note, if you're growing melons and other things in that garden space, in that raised bed, it is a formula for over or under watering the melon based on the watering needs of the other things too. So it's a great point about
Yeah.
watering.
So in the space of the melon, if your vine grows, and let's just put an average of 20 feet, because
Mhm.
that's a conservative average. 20 feet. What, just listener, gardener, think about what else you could put in that space.
Yeah.
What say you about it being easy or hard?
Hard. So the what we're voting on is basically the score is going to be Better Home and Garden. Do they pass or fail? Not
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do they pass or fail? Yay or nay?
Fail.
Fail.
No.
Absolutely fail. Okay. The next one. This is a weird one, by the way.
Yeah.
This one is very odd to me, I have to say. And I have grown them. Daikon radishes.
Uh-huh.
Daikon radishes. Okay. Um, what the hell? So first of all, why would you not lump that with anything else,
Carrots and yeah.
carrots or anything? And spoiler alert, the number one easiest. Never mind. We'll come
Okay.
into that one
Yeah.
at the end. The number
You're
one
just giving it
easiest.
all away today,
I
boy.
know. I just airing out my dirty draws, ain't I? So daikon radishes. All right. What do you think right off the bat? I have a definitive
Um,
answer because out of experience, but I'm going to let you go first.
yeah, so I'd say no, that it's not easy. There is definitely some nutrition to be considered. Not to say that um, that's not a concern when it comes to raised beds and anything else, but length of time for them to grow, and they're a part of the big pool is that they're a larger radish. Right? So even if we scan through the article, they talk about like they can get 20 inches long. And they're like, but if you got a bed that's at least 12 inches deep, then you'll be fine. It's kind of like, well, why? That math doesn't quite math. Like you could have gotten away with saying any regular or traditional radish could have made this list. So
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So daikon radishes, easy to germinate, get really big. Here's the deal. If you plant them next to a brassica, it will inhibit the growth of the brassica. Plain and simple. Seen it, done it. I got the badge, I got the patch, I got whatever you want to call it. I've done it. So I didn't realize it until after I planted it, but it was an issue. So That being said, that's incredibly difficult, right? Because
Yeah.
now you're factoring on a bunch of crap that you have to deal with. Now, on
You're
the
limiting that space
yes,
based on that reason. Yeah.
on the opposite end, we go all the way back to the first one, and we were discussing the soil underneath, and you have a shallow bed. These are great to grow as a cover crop because they are known as
They're
tillage
diggers.
radishes, and they
Yeah.
get very big. I will be completely honest. I have one recipe for daikon radishes. I do like it. I do not. I have not seen a plethora of recipes for it. So, which by the way, we missed it last time, but our recipes of the day are coming back on the subscriber episodes. So if you want those, next one we'll have two because we forgot.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
Bonus.
yep. And I've been told that I have to give my tomato pie recipe. So there you go.
I'm so excited.
But yeah,
There are a
so
lot of things that I miss about the garden. I miss cucumbers from the garden. I miss fresh green beans from the garden. I miss herbs from the garden. I miss tomatoes, just generally speaking. But when it comes to a meal, an actual dish that I miss from the garden, tomato pie. Just chills. I'm so excited this season.
so
Oh, real quickly, and I have a smaller version that I can make, which means I can eat it more often. I don't have to worry about a whole
yeah,
pie. So yeah,
absolutely. All
I
right.
am not gonna make it out of this summer, man. You know how many calories are anyway, all right, go ahead. All right.
Well, I got a low fat version too.
I do. Who wants that?
I do. Who wants and needs are two different things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
As my
definitely.
stepdad used to say, you can want in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. It was never what I wanted, that was for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So nay. I'm just gonna
Okay.
say it. What do you say?
Okay. Mine was nay.
Yeah. I mean, the complexity behind what you grow with it is a real issue. A
Yeah.
real issue. So
Leonard, we're 3 inaccurate votes against 1. It's 3-1 right now, right?
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's go on.
All right, next one. Peppers.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Aw,
So
yeah.
just to they're small, compact plants. They
Well, let's go back.
generally speaking.
There are places where you can direct sow pepper seeds to create the pepper plant. But most every gardener that I know grows a pepper plant first as a plant or buys a transplant and then puts that into their garden.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, if you look at this to say sowing a bean seed is pretty easy, but you have to do some upfront work for a pepper. So that's not necessarily a strike for it.
But our audience is hold my beer, I'll start it. You know what I'm saying? Like our audience will start a seed at the drop of a hat. They don't care. So
Yeah. Doesn't change the facts though, but okay, I'll lean into that.
I'm saying that's how we roll, right?
Mhm.
You know, and based off of what variety you pick, you can get huge harvests. I mean, I'm talking about like grow. You don't believe me? Grow a Tabasco pepper, and you just will rip the plant out and be like, I'm done. And you can get smaller ones, and there's a lot of variety and stuff like that. So I think with the compactness of it, the way they play in the garden with tomatoes and stuff like that, I think is great. So I mean, it's an easy one. It's a gimme. Yay. Okay. Next one, beans.
Mhm.
Do you want to vote and then discuss, or you want to discuss then vote?
Let's vote.
Okay, yay.
Nay.
Okay, let's go.
Uh-huh. I'll let you go for your yay. Prove me in my mind wrong.
I think again, we go by what I said. I think everybody should have a trellis, and there is literally no better crop to put on a trellis than beans. Also, with the variety of bush beans that are actually bush growing varieties, double yay. Not to mention, when it comes to preserving, it's one of the first crops you should preserve, and it's easy to preserve, and it produces a flavor with minimal effort that you already know from your whole life. So I say right off the bat, yay.
I
Convince
feel
me
like he
otherwise.
made I feel like he may have written the bean portion of this article. You were like, locked and loaded, boy. So my answer for bush beans is split. I think bush beans germinate well in a raised bed or otherwise. I think bush beans grow well, even when they may have the tendency to be a little floppy in a raised bed. The split part of bush beans are, generally speaking, most raised beds are pretty low. So that's really a strike against growing bush beans, period. Right. And honestly, folks, I'm getting to the space where I'm just like, do I have to bend down? Right? So I'm going to give it a rounded yay for bush beans. Pole beans, which for my rule and my guideline was this article is speaking of raised beds sans a trellis. So this is a straight raised beds. And pole, no, you said it differently before when we were talking about melons.
No, there's something they say here. First thing they
Mm,
say, bush type beans. The picture is a pole bean, but what they say is bush type beans.
hmm. So the first thing that I read was bush type and pole beans fit right
Oh,
into raised garden beds,
I should get to
right?
the
Yeah.
third word of the of paragraph.
So, but for our listeners, I think for this conversation, this is really relevant. This is about which variety, which type of crop you're planting. So, pole beans on a trellis, I love it. Pole beans growing in a raised bed up a trellis, I love it. If I remove the trellis element, which we've been trying to do as a part of this conversation, pole beans are not as nightmarish as growing melons in a straight raised bed, but they are pretty close. I grew pole beans inside of the cage baby last year. Mistake inside of the cage baby last year and up a trellis. And it was a great idea until the cage baby, the top of it, that's wire, I realized like it was creating like this pull. It was so hard to get to them. Again, that's I mean, everybody's not going to have that exact setup, but it highlights the raised bed. Yay. Trellis absolutely necessary in my mind. So that's the reason why I gave it an A overall. You can't grow all beans well and easily in a trellis. Excuse
Right,
me, in a raised bed.
right. I think though, if you and I mean, look, I know I'm flip flopping a little bit, but if you go back to it and you say, hey, every garden should have a trellis, it's one of the perfect. Melons is kind of a stretch
Because
for
of
a
the size
trellis
of the
because of the
fruit. Yeah.
size and the size of the vines. I mean, for that matter. I mean, I have
Mhm.
not had a bean vine get past 8 to 10 feet. So that's manageable. I've regularly had melons get well more than that. So, um,
And if you're growing on a trellis, I'm not signing up to this article is about raised beds and trellises. So I'm going to stand my ground there. But if we put a footnote in about growing them on a trellis, a lot easier for harvesting as long as you don't have a top like I did with the cage baby, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
if they're growing on a trellis that kind of goes straight up, or one of the cattle panel like trellises, like any of those, you're able to see those beans. And this is a crop that you need to harvest early and often, right?
yeah.
It's very important to the continued production of that plant.
But it's also a rewarding crop, especially for a new gardener, because you are continually getting large harvest off of this crop. So, and that I think that's really important. In a time when somebody's learning, and look, let's be honest, we grow food for one reason, to eat,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so when you're harvesting and you're getting a lot of harvest, it makes you feel better and it encourages you to do more. So that's why I give it a yay. Now, Batavia's batting her eyes right now, so we're gonna move on to one
I'm just
that's.
gonna say really quickly, I was on my 9 to 5, and a colleague and a friend, I worked with him for so many years, was telling us about a volunteer opportunity that he has, and you and I can talk about this offline. And I was like in a puddle the entire time, and so I shared that as we do this podcast. There are many opportunities where I'm in a puddle, and you do me the favor of cutting the camera. So let me tell you the uniqueness about this, the watery eyes now. You will never cry on this show. I've come to terms with that. And I'm not trying to make you, but there are moments where the garden is like there's an emotion behind it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that just then. Like even when you describe beans and it's this the flavor from your childhood. And so I, because we're best buds, got emotional for you because clearly you don't have the ability
So
to.
are our emotions synced up now? Is that a thing?
Clearly, clearly. All right, let's move on.
All right. So this one breaks my heart that it's in the article. Um,
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
So pros and cons. What's a what's a pro for you?
Set it and forget it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there is not a crop that is less labor intensive than a
Hmm.
sweet tater. Okay?
Growing.
Growing.
Mhm.
Okay. So what's a con for you?
It is a bully. So I've tried to split spaces. I've tried to grow sweet potatoes with a couple of other things. Mistake.
Damn, you're working on the hugs today. I'm telling you.
I'm telling you, man.
Um yeah, so it takes over, right?
Hmm.
So here's the deal with this article and what it's trying to get you to do. Um in my opinion, and this is why I'm going to go ahead nay. I'm going to go ahead and
Hmm.
say nay.
Hmm.
Um I love growing sweet potatoes. Love it. But what this article is trying to get you to do is plant small spaces within your raised bed of certain
Hmm.
plants. So it's trying
Hmm.
to get you to plant one row of sweet potatoes, one row of daikon radishes,
Yeah.
one plant of tomatoes. That's what it's trying to get you to do.
Hmm.
When you look at that and you look at the sweet potatoes, it is absolutely not one of those, in my opinion. And I'm going to go ahead and say, in my professional opinion, it is absolutely a full bed crop, hands down, just like a melon, full bed crop. And you need to be prepared for that vine to go over your garden and into your yard. And if that's the case, which it does not meet our criteria for this, then I would give it a yay. But I do not give it a yay because one or two sweet potato plants ain't worth growing. I mean, look,
Hmm.
what are you going to get, a trophy because you grew a sweet potato? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's all about, and this is where my opinion may differ from other gardeners, but some crops it is all about the poundage that you
Hmm.
get,
Hmm.
and sweet
Hmm.
potatoes is absolutely all about this poundage. It
Yeah.
is not about eating a sweet potato, and we you got to remember there's a curing process to it as well. So factoring in the curing process, it's not about eating a sweet potato 2 weeks after you harvest it fresh. It's about eating a sweet potato 6 months after you harvest it. That is the point of growing a sweet potato.
Yeah, that's the point for you to grow sweet potatoes, but
Absolutely.
I closely agree with you for myself personally. Like that's
What?
my view of it as well, right? So I'm gonna object for the people, I'm gonna counter for the people. So I, in this moment, said, "Dang it, maybe I shouldn't grow the sweet potatoes in the cage, maybe again." And so then I started thinking through like the ways that I can prevent the sweet potato vines from encroaching on the other beds inside of the cage baby because I'm only dedicating one bed to it. And so I have some ideas around it, but based on the space and room they take up, I can absolutely agree with the give it what it deserves and what it expects. Right. And so in turn, that's going to be multiple plants and ultimately producing many sweet potatoes. Right. I've grown sweet potatoes in containers before. And man, you know, like plainly put, because when I think about sweet potato, sure, I'll eat one potato as a side, but don't want to come out of the garden and say I've grown one potato, right? So let's just be realistic here. I think that without, it's negligent even for sweet potatoes in particular to not give any caveats.
Yeah.
That I'm going to make it a nay for the article.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And like I said, I love them. I hate to say no, but
Mhm.
I do. So
Again, we both grow sweet potatoes in raised beds, but we're taking a number of precautions around it. Your raised bed setup allows this to be more beneficial. But what are you running over sweet potato vines with the lawnmower at some point?
actually, yeah, I do. I do get to a point where I will run them over because I'm just like I'm done. And the thing is,
Yeah.
too, is like you may be thinking like, oh, well, I'll just trim the vines. Well, it's really not a good idea because then you're hindering the growth of your sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes back and forth a little bit. So nay, nay, nay. All right, next one. And this is, I do like the way they did this one. Leafy greens and lettuce.
Well,
Yay. Right off the bat, yay.
I'm a hard sell, man. So definitely yay. I have a small asterisk that says lettuce in particular, it's not the best use of the space. Think about like your small footprint and how much you can get out of a particular crop, right? So lettuce doesn't grow big and wide in most cases. Leafy greens separately absolutely
Right.
can. And I love that they use the reference to leafy greens. I'm going to give it a yay, but I'm going to also say for me, and I'm going to go off script here, I'd rather put lettuce in a container because I use containers than to give up space for my raised bed. Also, lettuce, generally speaking, is a shorter season for me in my garden, right?
So I don't grow anything in containers anymore. I've
Mhm.
graduated from that. That
Listen to you.
I graduated from it because it's a headache for me. That's why I
Yes.
say that.
Mhm.
So let's clearly you're a hard sell. Lucky for you and our listeners, I'm a salesman. And also,
You've learned nothing, ladies and gentlemen, over all of these years.
don't you feel sorry for my wife? It's even
I
worse for
do.
her. It's
We've
even
talked
worse.
about this, she and I.
Yeah. And so there's multiple ways to look at this. Leafy greens, whatever. In the fall, I do cut and come again. So 3 kale plants will feed us for the whole winter. Okay, that's taking up 3 square feet.
Mhm.
In the spring, I harvest my lettuce. I take the full head. So I planted 2 rows this year, and we ate 40 heads of lettuce. Okay, that's a lot. I mean, that really and truly is a lot.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if you live somewhere where there is good weather and it is a prolonged cool period, and you can do cut and come again, you know, 8 lettuce plants can suffice you for a decent amount of food. So it's easy to grow. It is, however, very pest susceptible.
Mm, mhm,
So
mhm.
there is an issue there.
Yeah.
Um, and when they say leafy greens, we're not factoring in cabbage. Let me look at this real
I don't
quick.
think you should have included kale. And this never happens in this episode. Mid explanation, you've already won me over. I retract my eh, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't break down in the article. Well, okay, it does a little bit. It doesn't break down very particularly, but it says vigorous plants like horseradish and pumpkins can quickly overwhelm. Here we go. Quick and pumpkins can quickly overwhelm small raised beds. Well,
Mhm.
pumpkins and melons
Melons.
grow
Yeah,
very
yeah.
similar. So here we go.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and they're grown from seed, so they're easy to grow in seed. I think across the board, and if you want to put a crops on there, I would say lettuce, collards, kale, mustard greens, and I mean, hell, if you really wanted to go deep, I would say turnips for the greens and the roots for that matter, but either one.
Yeah, I when I describe for my garden leafy greens, I'm not talking about lettuce and I'm not talking about anything in the cold crop or brassica family. But I can go with like anything you're harvesting for the leaf itself can be dumped into leafy green. So I can go along with that. I think that the experience of heads of lettuce, the different colors that leafy greens come in. I think it's just a really good and rewarding experience. And I believe that a lot of these do quickly produce. So much so where, again, if you love baby leaves like young Ben does, you can be harvesting these things at any stage, right? So that is the will I get more tomatoes off of a bed of tomatoes? Yes, compared to leafy greens.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at this space and saying, this space is dedicated to leafy greens and lettuce, is it easy? Yeah. Is it worthwhile? Yeah.
I will say this. First of all, if you're new to the show, I hate baby greens. And second of all, you are turning into me because your sarcasm came out just as smooth as it possibly could. So
Well,
I
this
love
has
it. I
been
love it. I love it.
35 years in the making. I just normally rein it in for the show. And I also would like to note that if you're new here, anytime I'm noting that Ben likes a thing, absolute sarcasm. He probably hates it. So,
Yeah.
as much as he likes curly kale, that was a test. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
he hates
terrible.
it.
Okay, so yay or nay?
I'm gonna go with yay.
Yay.
I don't
Okay.
remember. I'll have to listen back to see how adamant I was about the original response, but yeah, yay.
Okay. So the next one, because I really want to get to the question. This episode's going to go a little bit long, everybody.
Mhm.
Cucumbers. Yay or nay?
um, yay with trellising, nay without trellising.
Yep. Same here. I'm just going to go ahead and say overall yay. You know my stance on trellising at this point. Um,
Mhm.
I'm going to say this. It's like tomatoes and peppers. It's a standard in a
Mhm.
garden. I don't know, again, many gardeners who don't grow some kind of cucumber to some extent.
Yeah.
Prolific, put on a trellis, space saving, very rewarding to grow as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I think, and also because of it and the way it grows, it is open to multiple types of preservation, which I think is a very good introduction into fermenting,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
pickles are basically fermented. So, canning, eating fresh, salads, all that stuff. I think it's
Mhm.
definitely is. It does have its tricks, but it's easy to sow. It's easy to take care of.
Yeah.
It's if you have a trellis, it's great. If you don't have a trellis, just hang it up. If you don't have a trellis, get a damn trellis if you haven't figured it out by this point.
It's prolific. It's a vegetable that's prolific, and it's easy to give away if you get way more than you need, because you're gonna get way more than you need.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna just yay on that one. And then the final one, and then we're gonna give you what we think is the easiest are beets. So what do you think?
Yay.
Yeah, I think yay. I have to be completely honest. I haven't grown a lot of beets.
Mhm.
I have grown beets, and every time I've grown beets, I've gotten beets with very
Mhm.
minimal effort. So,
Yeah.
and I also have to be honest, beets are disgusting. So there is that aspect of it, but we're not judging on if it tastes good or not. So
I was on a call with 7 people yesterday, and I mentioned beets, and 2 of the 7 people I was the 7th person. So 6 people total heard me say this, and 2 of those 6 said they love beets. I thought about you.
two,
Just telling you.
two.
I mean, that's a pretty high percentage compared to what you would expect based on your disdain for it. I should have asked them about okra.
So I'll tell you a little story about beets. Did we go yay or nay yet?
Yay. We did
Yay.
yay.
Okay, yay.
Mhm.
So we went to a restaurant years and years ago, my wife and I, and she ordered a beet salad, didn't know what it was. And it came out with a plate full of beets. And she looked at me, she's like, "What the hell am I supposed to do with this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but you're gonna have to figure it out." She choked down that salad, and I
Oh,
was like,
wow, yeah.
"Good on you," because I would have
Uh.
thrown it on the floor and walked out. I'm like, "There's no way." She was down with a couple beets, but not like a large plate of
Mhm,
beets.
mhm.
But they grow. They're big seeds. They're easy to sow. They grow big crops. You can eat the greens, you can eat the root, you
Mhm.
can,
Mhm.
all kinds of things. So
They're pretty too.
yeah, and they don't need a lot. So
Mhm.
I say
Mhm.
yay for beets.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, what's the final score?
I
Leonard,
feel like
tally him up.
I feel like we had 4 yays out of 10. Is that right? I wasn't keeping track because I expected Leonard to. We yayed tomatoes, peppers. We yayed beets, 3. Did we begrudgingly yay beans, 4?
They got a 60%.
Yeah, because we yayed leafy greens and
Yeah.
cucumbers.
Yeah. So
All right.
we yay goes to tomatoes, peppers, beans, cucumbers, leafy greens, and beets.
Did you literally just repeat? I felt like you just mansplained the yays. Did you just repeat the yays that I said
I may have. I don't
minutes
know.
ago?
Maybe I was saying it. So I don't think I mansplained it. I think I just did it so that I knew that I did it.
Okay. All right. 60%.
60%.
Better Home and Gardens gets a D in our book.
A very low D. But I'm ready to take 5 points away. I
Oh.
think, and they were close. They were very close.
Hmm.
Radishes.
Mm.
There is no easier crop than a radish.
Yeah.
I mean, fast growing, a lot in a small area. My second was going to be okra, but
Yeah.
I had to change my tune on that. Um,
Yeah.
Now, here's where. So, do you agree with that? First of all, for the easiest,
Believe it or not, I was gonna toss in potatoes.
you know, I would toss in potatoes too. But here's the deal: root crops. There's a huge unknown about them, and that makes
Mhm.
them, in my opinion, that makes them a little bit
Mhm.
difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. But
I
I'm
mean,
not standing down because they're potatoes.
yeah, which my potatoes
If
are
I
looking.
could be a single crop farmer, it may not be tomatoes. It could be potatoes.
I smell an episode. That would be a fun episode, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you think about it. Here's the deal. This is we have to keep in mind this is a world-renowned magazine. Or, well, website. Are they even called magazines anymore? I don't even know.
Mm,
They started off as a
maybe they are.
magazine.
Mhm.
I mean, that doesn't do absolutely any good because that's across all seasons. So
Mm.
it's like, if you go through it, it's about half and half for summer versus cool weather. Um, you know what I vote, Batavia? I vote that we do a couple episodes about this for each season
Well,
because
I thought you were gonna vote to invite the author who specializes in focusing on gardening, homesteading, and DIY to
so
the podcast.
I'm so passionate about it. I don't think I could be nice. So I don't think that would work out well.
Lauren.
Yeah. Sorry. And I mean, look, I get it. It's just an article, but the point is they're writing these articles and it's trying to push you in a way, but I really don't think it's good advice. And it just goes to show like your experience will outshine
Mhm.
the stuff you read. And once you start to learn this stuff and you start, it's not even learning. It's once you get experience, and I'm sure 90% of you have experience in some of these crops, you will look at this and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. So whenever you read something, take it with a grain of salt. Think about it. But I don't want to let this go to waste. This question of the day. Okay, are you ready? Are you frozen?
We
Oh, you
were one
just
of us. Yes, I'm back.
okay. So this comes from our YouTube channel, Backyard Gardens Podcast. I believe I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, I apologize. Lauren. She says, the two of you have such a great vibe. I'd love to hear the origin story of how you met and how you got to the point of such a great podcast. I know. I did it. I planned it. I
Was
think
it?
it
Is it
is.
Lauren? Is that not the one that wrote the article? Oh, good gosh. All right, you have to keep us going. You have to tell the story.
Okay. So at one point, I was filming a documentary about backyard gardens. I'm going to just lay it all out. And I said, look, I need to advertise this. So I wanted to do something like a podcast. And it was just me. And I remember I was sitting in my closet and dude, first of all, if you've ever tried to speak constantly, like to keep the attention of somebody for 30 minutes straight, it was horrible. And I did like, I don't know, I probably did like 10 episodes or something. So the documentary fell apart because of COVID. It kind of, I got a lot of really good stuff in the can, but the participants in it kind of fell off because of everything that went down. So I got to a point and I said, look, I need to have somebody else on here. And I was just kind of looking around, and Batavia on Instagram had posted something about compost.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you post?
It was it probably was along the lines of my fear of composting because of my fear of it drawing animals in. And then young Ben chimed in.
It was because it was winter.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
winter.
Mhm.
So I told her, I said, hey, put a
He
piece of black.
DM'd me. He slid in my DMs,
I
y'all.
slid right in, like, because you know how I am. I'd be
Uh,
sliding in the
uh,
DMs. And I said, put a piece of black plastic over it and it'll soak up the sun. And I said, look, I've started this podcast. Do you want to be a
mm,
guest? Because I was originally just going to go with guests. And
mm.
Batavia came on.
Wait, before I came on, two things. One, the Instagram handle was associated with Backyard Gardens, the movie. And I thought, who's going to watch a movie about backyard gardens? Side note, I search so much on documentaries and movies and books that tell people's story with gardening, which is so ironic that in that moment, my initial reaction is like, really? My second note is I was reading, Say Yes as a book. And so I would have, in the past version of me, immediately said, no, thank you, but thanks for the offer. That's my initial reaction to those kinds of inquiries. And so, because of the place I was in my life, I said yes. And I was nervous about it going into it. All right, go on.
I wasn't nervous at all.
Mm,
I really wasn't. I was like, look, I'll just talk. That's what I do best. I talk.
mm-hmm,
So we did it, and she was just a guest. That was
mm,
it. There was no other plans for anything else. And as we got about probably halfway through, I thought to myself, I don't know who this chick is, but like, she's cool, you know? And I thought to myself, and I remember I was like, all right, well, thanks a lot. See ya. I'll give you a link. Yeah, I'll let you know when it airs. And then
All right,
I
let me jump in and say the conversation was so natural. And we never do that as a replay, which is kind of funny as an episode.
I don't even know
So the
where it
conversation's
is.
so natural. We hung up. I was so excited about it, right? Because I had such a good time. There's not an opportunity where you spend an hour talking about gardening. There hadn't been at that point in my life, right? And so then however many weeks later, the episode airs and he lets me know it airs, and I listened to it at that time. It was just all audio. And I was just like, wow. So now, again, in the year of yes mindset, I would never have done this prior. I commented, and I don't remember if it was on YouTube or Instagram, saying, oh, a great time. Let me know if you're interested in having me back, or something along those lines. I would never, ever, ever have done that,
It
but
was
I
a
did.
sarcastic comment.
Oh, I didn't write it that way,
I
but
came across that way, and I
okay,
looked at it
figuratively.
and I said, well, I was like, I'm gonna bite. And I messaged her back and I said, hey, you want to be on the show with me? Because it was a real struggle. I don't even know if those first episodes are out still. I may have left just one up, but I remember, like, dude, I would go through and I would say like a sentence and my mouth would get dry and I would like cough to like clear it. And then I'd go back and do it. And then it was an absolute nightmare. So during COVID happened, everything stopped
Yeah.
and the production of the movie came to a screeching halt. Everything fell apart. And I was like, I already got this co-host. Let's do this. And so we really kind of buckled down and really started going through it. Now, the show that you're watching now, this is like many generations of like
Yeah.
revamping it over and over and over again. So we did video for a little while and we
Mhm.
struggled with that. It was terrible. And we've just now come back. So um, thank you for commenting on YouTube and all that. But it's been a long journey. And
Mhm.
I can honestly say that that day that I got in touch with Batavia was a saving grace, because not only did I get a great co-host, but I got a really good friend out of it. And you don't get to talk, like Batavia said, you don't get to talk to people about gardening that really care and understand about gardening like you do. And there's a lot of people on the social medias, but a lot of them are for clicks and likes.
Yeah.
And Batavia and I have always looked at it like, I don't really care about the clicks and likes. I care about the information getting out and helping people.
Mhm.
And we've always stood that path, much to probably hold us back at times, but we've
Mhm.
always kept true to it. And no matter what, like, I mean, dude, we will argue from time to time. It's not as bad anymore, but we always agree. In the end, we
Yeah.
always agree on the core values of this show and what it was originally created for. So
Mhm.
I had it myself for probably 10 episodes, and then Batavia's been with me ever since. So that's our
Yeah,
origin story.
it's my final notes on this. It's interesting because there's also, and it doesn't come across, I don't think, we didn't know each other. There isn't some we were friends and then we decided to do this podcast. That would put our origin back to probably 2019 in the first DM exchanges, because we would have done the first episode where I came on as a guest in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we joined forces officially in 2020 as well. And it's I mean, it's ordered by God. That's the only explanation I have, because in this, what, 6-year period, young Ben, and I tease him, I don't normally call him young Ben in our regular life. Like, he's one of my best friends,
Yeah.
right? He's an important person in my life. And it's beyond gardening, but it's also because he understands the love and has that same love for gardening and sharing this experience and helping others. And that is, it's, again, I've worked in fields for decades, and there are not people that I spend, that much time with that I'm as close as I am with him, right? Like
Yeah.
you're working with people 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you have relationships with them, but it's not this. And so that's meaningful to me. And I can't believe you sat on this question and didn't tell me coming into the episode. I'm glad you didn't. And
What would
that's the
it, what
reason
good would it
why.
be if I didn't? I mean, come on. It had to happen. It had to happen today. It just came through the other day, and I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? It's worth it. But I mean, in all honesty, it's been a long road. It's been fun. I feel like I'm doing like a this is the last episode, but it's
Oh
not.
no. The series was abruptly
This is
canceled.
it. Yeah, we're not continued. But I mean, in the beginning, it was hard when we would. I remember looking at the numbers and being like, we had 10
Mhm.
people listen to us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so now we've kind of gone past that, and it's really hard when you're doing that because you don't know which direction to take. And through that time frame, Batavia and I would sit down and we would talk about what we would think people wanted to hear, and we would come
Hours of it.
hours,
Hours. We would sit down
and
hours
we
and
would come out with
hours on
4 episodes.
it.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
ridiculous, and we've gone through. So it's and we've grown close over the years. So I'm thankful you're here, Batavia, and I'm
And I'm thankful you're
thankful
here.
that Lauren wrote us in and asked that question because there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that would like to know. So there you go. Now you know. And then next time we do it, you'll get the same reaction from Batavia. It might be 5 years from now. And
Like, it's the
then
first time we've talked
yeah,
about it.
first
Yeah.
time we talked about it. So, um, and also it's a good dynamic because Batavia is a loving person and I'm very straightforward
Mm,
person when I communicate. And people don't like that, but
mm.
it eliminates a lot of question when I get done talking. So,
One final note. I am so very much like young Ben in my regular everyday outside of this life. And this show and the way that we run this show gives me an opportunity to relax my shoulders and be more of that warm individual, right?
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that. It's definitely an outlet that lets me tap into a different side of myself that I don't always get to express. I don't always take an opportunity to express. So there is that. And so when you see us and we seem kind of even opposite of each other, we're really not, right? This is just again, I can cry for him because he's not going to cry on the episode, but
Yeah.
he's a crier too, right? All right, that's we're not gonna keep on going back around.
And for the record, we have never been within 1,000 miles of each other. So
Oh, I forgot about that part, and I
yeah,
always forget about that part.
I forget about
Like
it too.
this is a whole catfish experiment. We've literally never met in person,
Never.
and I always feel foolish when I say that out loud. But yeah, that's
Yeah, it's like some weird documentary is going to come out one day,
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we've never met in person. We may change that one day when finances
Yeah,
allow. It's just a financial thing. I mean, it's not like,
yeah,
oh, I don't want to go anywhere near or,
yeah.
or to Chicago or anything. So yeah, but if you'd like to be like Lauren, you can do so. You can send us a message on YouTube. You can do it on Facebook at BYG Backyard Gardens Community Garden, excuse me.
Mhm.
Or you can send us an email at bygquestion@gmail.com and we will get to it. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron, an Apple subscriber, or just subscribing on YouTube and helping us get to the next milestone. So thank you very much. And remember, on this show, we do a couple things. Today we do 3. We sell seeds, so buy some of those. We learn to grow, and we grow for change.
And we also cry a little bit. See ya.